I can touch on the carnivore diet as well, so you mentioned that. So that's been an enormous hack for my bodybuilding experience. I experienced less inflammation, which I never knew I even had. It's kind of bizarre because everyone goes around their life sort of saying, I eat a bit of processed food here and there, moderation and balance and this, that, and the other. And I think, yeah, but imagine if you could feel like 10, 20, 30% better in some cases every single day.
Today, I am pleased to introduce to you my special guest, Jonathan. He is a British carnivore bodybuilder, coach, and nutritionist behind Carnivore Muscle and compositionconsultant.com. With an extensive background and degree in human nutrition and over 16 years of lifting experience, he helps clients transform body composition and health through science-backed, personalized carnivore-based strategies. Jonathan also lives with autism and complex regional pain syndrome, and he shares his journey to inspire others to turn their limitations into their greatest assets. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Jonathan. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited to chat with you.
And gee, it's nice to be here. Thanks very much for the invite, and hopefully some of my journey, my story will unravel itself as we go through this little chat, and it might relate to some people. Of course, we can share it about because there'll be someone out there similar sort of position as me that needs a bit of motivation, kick up the backside, and hopefully it'll transpire to a greater following, just a better message towards binge eating and eating habits in general.
Thank you so much. I guess to start, can you just give a little bit of background about who you are and how did you get to be doing what you're doing in the world today?
Sure, yes, I'm a 29 and three quarters year old man living in England. And I have to mention that I live with autism, so I'm very overly particular of certain things. And basically, I had an injury when I was playing rugby at the age of, I believe it was 13. It was a school sports tour, an international sports tour, and the Italian team decided to pit us up against adults, which led to not this injury here, that's something else, but basically an injury with my spine and my hips. So I have basically something called a spinal fusion, which is essentially what it sounds like. So think metalwork, think transformers, think rods and bolts at my spine, basically. So I've got two scars. That's sort of size on my lower back, somewhat hidden to some degree. But basically, eventually, I've had a diagnosis recently of something called CRPS, which is complex regional pain syndrome. Explicitly, it is what it sounds like. So it's pain which is very complex within a region. But the downside of it is that that region will spread over time. For most people, not always, but most people. It's categorized into two different things. So type 1 is one that you're born with. So you can kind of look at it a bit like diabetes. Like type 1 diabetes, you tend to be born with it, genetic disorder. Type 2 is what I have. So that's as a result of spinal fusion surgery. And I had that roughly 2.5 years ago on December the 12th, 2022. The recovery was fine up until about the 3 month mark, which would land around about March 2023. And since then, I've just been going downhill. So I experience a lot of pain. There's something called, I believe, a McGill pain score. So it's a comprehensive test questionnaire sort of thing. You go through loads of questions. Basically, my pain is chronically at all times, without really any exception, except for very few rare circumstances, a few days here and there every few months, where it'll go down to about 7, and that'll be with medication. But my baseline level, with the strongest medication I can legally access, is at an 8. The friend was wondering, it is the most painful condition known to man. It is more painful than cancer. Unfortunately for women out there, you're not gonna like me saying this, but it's just the way it's categorized with the data that they do have in scientific studies and different tests and nerve conduction tests, things like that. Brain imaging. Childbirth is more bearable, apparently. I can't speak on it myself for obvious
Yeah.
reasons. But yeah, it is a very painful condition. Living with autism, late diagnosis, same with the other stuff, really. My presentation physically doesn't appear it.
Yeah.
So I live as a nutrition consultant online, a content creator just like your lovely self, and I specialize mainly on the carnivore diet. So basically, what I try to do is collaborate with people like you, make my own information, do basically the research. So a lot of my stuff and content is based around the research rather than the video itself.
Yeah.
Just to make sure what I put out there is accurate because you never know who's going to be listening. People will see me, a muscular, well-built sort of guy, and they think, "I'm gonna do what that guy's doing," and it's like, yeah, it could work, but also might not. So I give people the full broad picture of what's going on, and how it might pertain to them in terms of what interventions they might need to run in their day-to-day life. But I focus a lot on biohacking. So I'm doing these are yellow tinted blue blocking glasses. These are more of a daytime lens.
Hmm.
I've also got the amber ones. These are more nighttime lenses. I do a number of different things. Got something called a NeuroSim device, which got sent recently. This isn't some weird like promotional thing, but just to highlight, my day is micromanaged by 10-minute intervals. Everything I do is deliberate. So after this, I'll be sticking this on.
Mhm.
Basically, it's a vagal nerve stimulator, so it's meant to relax you, increase parasympathetic tone, just so you digest better, you sleep better, recover better, things like that. But I found a lot of things useful and some things less useful. But if you're happy, I'd like to talk a bit about the carnivore diet, maybe, and how it's improved my body composition, my moods, all this mirage of different symptoms that I do have. It's not immaculate. I'm not sat here saying, if you do what I do and everything I eat and this, that, and everything train the way I do, then you're going to get the same result because you probably won't. But in terms of everything that I've implemented over the years, it's been pretty helpful. The carnivore diet for me ranks number one in terms of efficacy. It frees up a lot of your mind as well. But do you have any more questions related to that, maybe?
First of all, thank you so much for sharing that, and for being willing to share your time with me. I know that your time is precious. I'm curious about your experience bodybuilding with your complex regional pain syndrome and autism and chronic fatigue and other challenges you had. And I also would love to hear about how the carnivore diet has really been transformational for you. So if you could talk about both of them or one of them and then the other, I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah, I started bodybuilding with my brother, the age of say 13, 14. I noticed I got pretty good results pretty fast. Injuries crept up, sports. I've done a lot, American football, you know, soccer, trampolining, gymnastics, sprinting, weightlifting, resistance training, bodybuilding, circuit training. There's probably a few more things I've been doing, but yeah, basically I'm an athletic individual, but that's my way of acquiring that passionate focus that bodybuilders and especially autistic bodybuilders might have. So with me, it's a case of okay, how do I train in such a way that allows me to still keep the muscle mass on
Mhm.
without stimulating my central nervous system to go into a massive panic mode.
Mhm.
I can easily dip in and out of that panic mode very, very easily. So for me, it's a case of managing things like blood glucose levels.
Mhm.
So what I found is, which is not too miraculous to anyone listening to this, but quite surprising to me because I never thought about it. You don't need carbohydrates on a carnivore diet mostly. The amount I eat is probably 30 grams per day, if that. That's through
Mhm.
dairy, trace amounts through eggs, and I have
Mhm.
the old coffee here and there, which is apparently going to kill me. But we all have our vices, I guess. So yeah, just take it as it comes. And basically, been doing the carnivore diet now since February the 2nd, 2020. So that's nearly 5.5 years. My blood results, kidney markers, liver markers, everything is as good as it's ever been. I do use some supplements, some different things to help enhance my performance. I've done trial and error. I've managed health food shops. I've kind of got a good gist of what's going on in terms of what's out there and what is and isn't working. But yeah, going back a bit more into bodybuilding, so the training side of it is basically what we generally talk about. When we think about bodybuilding, we don't think so much about weighing stuff on kitchen scales. We think, what is this guy doing in the gym? Basically, what I do is follow something called, I guess you could define it as slow burn, which is a training methodology. And effectively, when I'm lifting a weight, it's very slow. So you'd probably say, oh, but isn't fast reps better for muscle activation? No, the reality is it's not. Now, will you recruit more muscle fibers if you're lifting it faster? Yes, but you'll burn out faster, your joints will take more of an impact, will get less longevity in the sport. So with me, I want to maintain this passion as long as humanly possible. Effectively, as of last year, I won a show that I'm doing actually in about 5 weeks from now. That was a Mr. Hampshire show, basically. So I compete in the tall classic bodybuilding class. So I'm 6'1". I compete around about 93, 95, 96 sort of kilos. Depends which show, what look you're trying to bring. And yeah, this slow burn training is absolutely marvelous, honestly. So it came across to me through someone I know online, a friend called Jerome Armstrong.
Mhm.
Now, I questioned things at the start because I was like, why is this guy doing so different to everyone else? Like, is he onto something that I'm not? It turns out he was. And I thought it was a load of rubbish, like, oh, this is how old people train. The
Yeah.
reality is I'm holding the most muscle that I've ever held in my body
Mhm.
as a disabled athlete competing against non-disabled, non-handicapped athletes. And I'm beating most of them. That's just the way it is. It sounds a bit arrogant, but I'm confident in my abilities. I know what I can achieve. It's just a case of implementing it. So yeah, I can get kind of go a bit into the training a bit more maybe. So what it is say I'm doing a chest press, easy example, be about
Mhm.
10 seconds up and about 10 seconds down, and I mean true seconds. So I'll actually be using my clock on my phone, my stopwatch. So I'll time my sets. So I set duration, time and tension, time to load as my metric alongside the weight that I'm using to track progression. Now,
Mhm.
if I say to someone, how many reps and how many sets you do, they'll say, oh, I'll do 3 sets of 10. Okay, 3 sets of 10 of what? How long does this set of 10 take you? Because
Mhm.
10 repetitions out like that won't do much at all. Probably get joint pain. But I try to maximize muscle fiber recruitment. So I go into the gym, hit my workout. I'm not totally fatigued, which is quite cool. So I do experience a massive amount of fatigue, but I try to minimize that just by the minimal effective dose. So anyone that's familiar with things like pharmacology will understand if we're using paracetamol, different pain meds, I don't know what you call them over there, acetaminophen, I think, things like that. You don't want to use the maximum dose. You want to use the minimum dose to get the most benefit.
Right.
So that's going to yield the least wear and tear in my body. And I was thinking at the start, well, it's not going to give me all the benefit because I'm not doing what everyone else does. Turns out I don't need to. So with training, it's not a case of copying what I do or someone
Mhm.
else like yourself. It's a case of what do you need to do to get the job done.
Mhm.
And that's what I found so far. So typically, I'm training 3 times per week. That is usually somewhere between about 5 and 8 total sets. And when I say total sets, that means that's it. There's no 3 or 4 warm-ups here. It's 5 to 8 total sets. Now, some weaker body parts, some things which I have a better recovery capacity for, I'll add in something like a rest pause set. There's different reasons and utility for different kind of intensifiers. So an intensifier, for anyone wondering, is how would you make a set more difficult beyond the point of doing, say, a set of 10 reps? So it might be you do partial reps, might be do rest pause, so you rest 10 seconds, lift another two, rest, lift another two. Can we
Mhm.
drop sets? So say you start on 100 kilos or 220 pounds, maybe drop to 180, then 160 with rests in between. Lots of ways to skin a cat, but for me, it's just efficiency. What can I easily track and measure? And that's part of the fun for me. So I record everything I do, analyze everything I do, just to make sure I'm accountable. So what you experience when you sort of go into my Instagram page or YouTube is what I'm doing. It's not people make content for the sake of making content. I could easily lift all the weight in the gym. My PBs are insanely good in terms of what weight I can lift.
Mhm.
Problem is, they will snap my body up really quickly. I'll experience a lot of pain for it. So it's all about getting the tension on the muscle group that I'm trying to work that day. I can touch on the carnivore diet as well. So you mentioned that. So that's been an enormous hack for my bodybuilding experience. I experienced less inflammation, which I never knew I even had. It's kind of bizarre because everyone goes around their life sort of saying, I eat a bit of processed food here and there, moderation and balance and this, that, and the other. And I think, yeah, but imagine if you could feel like 10, 20, 30% better in some cases every single day.
Yeah.
Once you get into that health bracket, like myself, chronic illness, disease, disorders, whatever you want to call it, you'll find that your willingness to approach different things becomes a bit more forward. You sort of think, maybe I might die of a heart attack, but maybe I'll live a bit better for the duration of whatever's left of my life. Where it is, I never even considered that. Turns out we can't get a heart attack from a standard carnivore diet. There's lots of stuff about lipid values which are quite confuted. There doesn't seem to be any hard science to suggest that high cholesterol levels or ratios or balance or anything is absolutely causal towards heart disease, cardiovascular disease of any kind. So that's been my general experience. I do have a number of blood tests I'd get taken through the NHS and the National Health Service and privately. So I test what I need to test that is useful to me. There's a few key things I look at, so things like ferritin levels, testosterone, iron, cortisol, maybe. But all these blood tests have different levels of efficacy. For example, I could test my testosterone on a Monday, I could test it on a Friday, two different values. But okay, what does that testosterone convert into? Now, if I'm a low testosterone producer, hypothetically, and I produce a lot of estrogen in relation to that testosterone amount, I'm not going to feel very good.
Mhm.
So it's going to be a mismatch. So maybe I'm overtraining. Maybe my body's trying to find ways to signal to me to slow down, or maybe your
Mhm.
body's trying to say, "Oh, catch up a bit. You can do a bit more here." So you'll feel motivated to go in the gym. And there's a sense of calm you get with a carnivore diet, which people don't often talk about. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the most stoic, hardcore person out there, but most people I speak to in a carnivore diet have a much more balanced, placid kind of attitude. They're not sensationalistic. They're quite calm sort of people in general. That's just what I've noticed. I coach a lot of people, and what I found is all their health markers tend to improve. And that's irrespective of if I'm working with them or not. It's just whether they've had digestive issues, skin issues, brain fog, mood, sleep issues. Most of them tend to get a bit better. So what I actually tend to get people to do is imagine you could draw like a gingerbread person, not just a stand cutouts of a person, then draw like an arrow next to each part of your body. So say you get headaches all the time, arrow, headache. Day
Mhm.
one, 8 out of 10. Shoulder pain, I don't know, joint pain, knee pain, digestive discomfort, 6 out of 10. Do it for another week, measure again. So you have to have a measurable subjective sort of markers, and I use objective markers as well through blood tests,
Mhm.
weighing scales, training capacity, recovery capacity, things like that.
Mhm.
And what I've generally found is every metric I've had, which was bad before, has got better to some degree. The things like pain, I have to just accept it is what it is. But I know damn well if I eat a load of junk food, processed food, my pain will go from a baseline of 8 to a 9 to a 10. And then by that point, I'm screaming and I'm bringing up the A&E to get me to the ambulance, to the hospital or something. Unfortunately, the pain meds here are not sufficient for people like me. CRPS, complex regional pain syndrome, it forms such a minor demographic globally. So
Mhm.
there's not a lot of research into it. Interviews, chats like this are very helpful because I can tell you guys what I'm roughly doing. I appreciate it's quite a niche kind of topic that we go into here, like, autism, carnivore, bodybuilding,
Mhm.
pain, things like that, but it might relate to someone. But yeah, I mean, the carnivore diet for me has been largely speaking, people ask about macros a lot. They always wonder what that is. So 370 protein, 30 carbs, and 200 fat. And that right now is what you'd consider a very high protein content. Typically, people my
You
sort of
said 300
weight,
something? How much protein did you say?
370, yeah. So for anyone that's wondering what that might look like on a plate, 2 kilos of raw chicken breasts. I do cook my meat. Um, if it's served a bit raw, I don't really care. I don't stress too much about it. But generally speaking, I eat cooked meat. What you see online, people eating raw steaks is not it's not what people are generally doing. I'd say maybe 1 out of 1,000 people actually do it. It's very, very niche. That's been my experience in general. And there's the ice cream van. You might be able to hear it. It's not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, carnivore diet is prompted me actually. I can make carnivore ice creams out of raw milk, eggs, whey protein,
Mhm.
things like that. So there's a lot of like hacks you can do. So it
Yeah.
is approachable if you know what you're looking at in terms of recipes. Yeah, so like I said, 370 protein, 30 carbs from dairy and eggs, and fats 200. And that's for me right now with my current settings, help me drop body fat. So I'm not going to strip off, but you kind of see like see, my legs is like no fat on me at all.
Yeah.
Abdomen essentially like 2 millimeters thick or something. So
Mhm.
I'm getting leaner. I'm not quite there yet, but it's been absolutely drastically easier to compete. And I say this not as in just my experience, but everyone I've worked with. Your appetite's under more control, blood sugar's better regulated, sleep's better, pain's less, you don't get as much joint pain. And all the mechanisms around the carnivore diet and the biology actually seems to make a lot of sense to me. But yeah, did you have any sort of more sort of questions about that sort of side of things?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is, when I've done bodybuilding preps in the past, it was meticulously like designed and implemented where it's like, okay, you have this many grams of carbs, proteins, and fats, and then we're going to drop these certain things. And generally, it was the carbs. There was like one prep that I did that was keto because I stopped bodybuilding like as far as competitively like a long time ago before I became, carnivore. So the first prep I did actually was like more ketogenic, just because that's what it was. I was working with a coach who had me on a diet. I think it was like, was it Dave Columbo? I can't remember. It was some keto. It was a keto
Yeah.
macros. And then after that, I did the more like kind of like more traditional sort of bodybuilding preps, like with carb cycling and all that sort of thing. But with doing prep that is with like carnivore. Are you manipulating I mean, there's not a ton of carbs to manipulate. Are you manipulating more proteins and fats, or like how do you sort of manipulate strategically over time in your prep?
That's a really good question. Yeah, so what I tend to find is protein remains quite stable, and at times it may increase depending on appetite. What we can see from different overfeeding studies in regards to protein intake is that it's not a three macros and you can just eat all of it. You'll get digestive discomfort, you feel bloated, things like that if you have too much. But over time, you can upregulate your metabolism with more protein. And if you're under chronic stress or chronic pain, different conditions, your protein quants will go up. Might not necessarily mean because your protein needs are higher, but it's the other stuff around it. So maybe there's certain amino acids, certain precursors to different hormones, certain vitamins, minerals that innate nature to be within the actual meat itself. But people don't talk about that side of it. They just think meat, protein, but it's well, if you look at your macronutrients or your nutritional profile from a carnivore diet, you're getting most of your vitamins and minerals from actually meat, the protein portion of it. The fat, obviously, you get fats with vitamins and things like that, but it's not a large amount. So the protein, like I said, tends to remain the same. Carbs for me, they vary a bit. I mean, the off season I'll leverage carbs a bit more, not because I think it's necessary to gain muscle, but if you add in, say, I don't know, a bit of extra seasoning to your meat, something like that, it makes it more palatable. So if you're a high end of musculature already, trying to get a very high, like elite sort of level, if you can eat more food, you can get bigger as long as you can digest it. So that's the
Mhm.
caveat. You're not going to add in 50 grams of carbs and get better results, but it's going to help you eat more food. The other side of it, I guess, the third macro, the third out of four macros, it's four. Miraculous. So fourth one's water, by the way, in case anyone's wondering. But yeah, the other macro is carbohydrate, not carbohydrate, fat. So lipids. What do you take in? So 200 grams per day for me is quite low. It's not the lowest I've been,
Mhm.
but I find over time you can upregulate your mitochondria by gradually phasing in more and more food over time. So when people say, oh, your calorie intake, it must be this, it's that, and that's it. It's not true at all. Your metabolic rate can vary a lot, and this is just personal to my experience, and people out there maybe listen to this may have a different experience, but I tend to find most carnivores, if you looked at caloric value, which is not a metric I really use to be honest, but if you look at it in that kind of regard, I'm probably seeing most people eat about 10 to 15% more. And I believe that is because it emits the carbohydrate insulin model. So that portion of weight gain or weight loss. So ultimately, when we're looking at body composition, we're looking at what are my macros? How much is it too much? Is it too little? How do I feel? How do I train? How do I recover? How do I sleep? How's digestion? How's energy? How's hormones? Things like that. Then you sort of taper things around a bit. But I do find that because you're not eating carbohydrates, you don't get these rapid dips. So you can
Mhm.
actually eat more food because you're taking in more food, which is actually lower in something called deuterium, which is a heavy isotope of hydrogen. So effectively, water is water, yes, but we can get different levels of deuterium within the water we take in. So what we find is with different foods, like grass-fed foods, bison, lamb, things like that, grass-fed beef. Like over here in England, pretty much all of our meat is grass-fed for the majority of the year anyway. Maybe 75% of the feed is grass-fed by default. Lamb
Mhm.
is always grass-fed, as far as I can tell. What you find is the more natural food is, the less processing, the less junk it's given, the lower deuterium it is. So basically, the deuterium you take in from the food will make up the deuterium content within your cells in your body. There's been various different people online, like scientists, researchers, have sort of found, well, yeah, we sort of we won't use certain wording here, but like say the big C. People are using deuterium depletion as a means to put things like that into remission or help cure that disease in some sense. So you can look at, for example, rodent models where they sort of reduce the deuterium of their diet. You can look at human models, and I know people personally on a personal level who've had incurable brain cancer, a glioblastoma. I've got a friend called Andrew Scarborough. I believe he's around about 12 years big C free, as in, yeah, he's probably still got it to some degree, but he's not experiencing negative symptoms. He just has to be quite careful with his diet. Now, he sort of manages his diet even more strict than I am. So he will buy the food from the farm and he'll make sure the food he's eating is given a certain food itself. And if he's buying eggs, he'll feed the chickens the right food that they're meant to eat himself. So he'll feed them worms and things. Just the
Mhm.
composition of the fatty acids within that egg yolk, for example, are more aligned to what we'd naturally be eating. And obviously, the processed food system does not help at all. So yeah, I mean, there's tons of mechanisms we can go into, but that's just one of them. But yeah, I mean, carnivore diet. I couldn't see myself not doing it. Yeah, I do fall off sometimes, but it's deliberate. It's intentional and it's more of a novelty. So it's like if you've had a nice meal with your family one day, or there's a certain celebration, or you usually get to a certain restaurant on your birthday or something like that. I don't know. That's the sort of time where I say, okay, today I'm going to eat some mashed potato with some gravy with a bit of cheese on it and a steak or something. And that'll be
Mhm.
about it. But I'll keep it to one meal. And that'll be right now, not a lot at all. Very rarely because I'm competing. But in the off
Mhm.
season, it'll be once every 3 or 4 weeks. And I won't get too much damage for it. But when you soon start adding these things back in, it can easily spiral out of control. So having that awareness of how your body feels, going back to the gingerbread man sort of analogy, becomes more
Mhm.
useful. So I know myself, I've eaten in the past, my first year of carnivore, and I found that, yeah, as time went on, my health didn't really improve as much as I hope. So you get more and more refined. So you eventually get to people that just eat both beef, salt, and lamb.
Wow.
That's not personally for me because of my genetics, my physical needs. I
Mhm.
can't eat enough on that sort of diet. So mixed animal food diet is what I tend to promote to most people as long as they can tolerate it.
And how are you feeling right now? So you're 5 weeks out from your show. And historically, I would say in my preps, maybe I just went too hard, but I was really tired. I was exhausted. I was just completely focused on the show and nothing else because yeah, I just gave 100% to all my preps. But like I said, I've never done a carnivore prep before. I'm just curious, how's it going right now?
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy. When you're managing various pain medication, diet stuff, symptoms, things like that, it's tricky. But over time you become better managed. So for what I experience as difficult would be absurd for another person just because they couldn't get their head around it. Like I
Yeah.
said, like the 10-minute intervals of everything I do each day is
Yeah.
it's a lot for a lot of people to take in, but because of that, it takes my focus away from things. So bodybuilding for me in terms of content prep is quite yes, I'm hyper focused and I'm passionate about it, but it's a background thing. It's like I'm on a bit of a diet right now. I'm probably going to wake up tomorrow morning about 6:30, quite hungry. I go for a walk, listen to some music, stand outside, get some sunlight, grounding, things like that. Just take my mind off things a little bit. But I enjoy the anticipation. And I'm currently about 5 weeks out, so my show's June the 1st, and today at the time of recording, it's
Mhm.
29th of
Yeah.
April, I think. So I should be feeling like death. Honestly, I'm not. I'm sat here right now. I'm still podcast. This is my fourth podcast in 4 days. I've
Wow.
probably got another one or two tomorrow, probably. I feel all right, but most people are deaf mode. They want to talk to people.
Right.
I am quite introverted by nature, but I'm not sat here right now thinking, when's my next meal? I mean, I've got
Right.
my meal I was having earlier. I've not finished it all because there's too much.
Mm.
It's a weird predicament to be in, but my hunger is not absurd like it used to be. That food focus is definitely not there. Yeah, I like my food, like a bit of it. I love to sit down one day, just I can if I wanted to, but I'm competing. But let's sit down one day and have like a big beef brisket,
Mhm.
half a stick of butter, a load of different cheeses on it, parmesan, all that sort of stuff. Just chow down sort of thing, and that'd be really nice. But what for short-term satisfaction, who
Yeah.
cares? It's not a big deal for me. The food focus is largely gone. So with my coach, so coaches have coaches too. It's good to
Yeah.
have that second eye, second opinion.
Of course.
We record my progress through a log, so everything I do in the day, from bowel movements to food to sleep to training supplements,
Mhm.
everything I do is documented. So I can say what scores are this pain, joint pain, digestion, everything. So we run the intervention for the week, see what happens. Okay, my sleep's not good. Well, how do we patch up that recovery hole? Because what we're doing is not naturally innate to us. We're not meant to be shredded. Um,
Mhm.
but we use certain interventions at certain times for a short period of time to put a blockade on that thing to mitigate any damage that will happen from, say, lack of sleep. So maybe increase my magnesium supplements or something like that. So that's effectively what I'm doing, but it's an absolute breeze. The only thing is the difference now is not so much it's not so much fatigue, it's more just energy hunger. And it's
Mhm.
a different kind of hunger to what most people experience. So most people sit there at night 8 o'clock, they've had the dinner. Oh, I want a dessert. I'm hungry. You're probably not hungry, you just want the dessert. But for
Right.
me, it's I don't really care about much about the dessert. It's I'm hungry for nutrition because my body's low in body fat. So you
Right.
look at things from a different perspective. That's quite helpful because you have less of that food focus, less of that noise. That inner sort of demon saying, well, if you just have that cake that's in your mum's fridge, feel better for it. It's like, I might feel better for the 5 minutes I'm eating it, if that. Afterwards, I feel horrendous. So I
Mm.
document how I feel before, during, and after food, and every single time, time and time again, the same cycle. I went through all that my first year, and I just thought, well, it's just not working. I always feel worse after it, so why do I do it?
Mhm.
It's that self inner thought, that introspection that I think's really useful, which you just don't really get when you're bombarded with processed foods and adverts and things. So I don't even watch TV anymore just because it's processed food to me only appears in other people's plates or at bus stops, on advertisements, billboards. So
Do you have a certain prep week? So as you get closer to the show, like the week, are you doing special protocols, maybe with salt or water manipulation or maybe even carbohydrate manipulation? But are you doing something special or are you just kind of gliding in with this natural sort of carnivore way all the way until show day?
that's a good question. Yeah. So what we tend to do is we do a front load. So for anyone wondering, you tend to eat more food at the start of the week. So say it's a Wednesday and I'm competing Saturday.
Mhm.
Wednesday I'll have the biggest amount of food. Then we monitor the look. So am I full? Do I have a bit of loose skin, or am I still lean? Am I holding water from too much food? All that sort of stuff we look at, and how do you balance out the best look? So each morning we look at and saying, oh, we're a bit flat today. We need a bit more food. We're a bit too full today. We need to taper down the waistline a bit because you're bloated or something like that. But it's not done in terms of a protocol. It's done in terms of a principle and an approach. Typically, my fat intake will go up maybe say I was competing next week. Fat on Wednesday might be 350. Thursday might be 300. And the next week it might be 250. Then the day before we go quite low on the food just to get rid of any distension, any bloating,
Mhm.
any sort of slower digestion we'll sort of get rid of. Then on the day of the show, we don't do anything special. Usually it's a small black coffee, a small breakfast, just enough to keep me going, feel fueled. I snack on these like beef brisket, dried jerky things.
Mhm.
So like biltong, things like that. So it's high density, high nutrition, low chance of bloating, clean, beef, salt, simple stuff like that. And it works quite well. But we do tend to use the off season as a way to gauge fullness and like how I feel. So if I
Mhm.
know, for example, I train 3 times a week. If I know, okay, I've had two, say, I don't know, teaspoon of salt with meal one, then I train, take my photos, whatever, before my actual training session. Oh, I look good. I feel good. Hydration's good. The pump's there. Lots of veins on my arms, things like that. Well, great. We set it. We know that works. So we don't need to go back and default to other things. So my preparation for this contest, which is on June the 1st. I did the finals in October, I believe I came seventh. My prep started for this competition when I finished my first competition. So the time I actually compete on stage will match exactly the time that I train in the morning. So it's around about 11:30. So I know when I'm due to get a pump to go on stage, I'm training as if I'm going on stage. I look at things from a full mosaic of what do we need to do? Because most people will finish work, train in the evening, and that will compound an issue because they don't know what they look like when they're about to go on stage. So, for example, a junior bodybuilding competitor might train at 7 at night. They'll be on the stage at 10:30 in the morning. Is a mismatch.
Right.
So you don't know when your best look will be, but refine everything and just take it very seriously because what I'm trying to achieve is absurd. I shouldn't be able to achieve it, but that's the fun of it. I feel very tenacious defeating people that are much more able than me because I know I've outsmarted them because they won't be able to achieve the same thing. Now, doesn't it's not to say I'm not going to be beaten by people that are just better than me. It happens. People do have better physiques than me out there. It's just are they there on the day and do they bring their best package? And
Mhm.
oftentimes it's not the case. With a carnivore approach, things are more stable. When you're generally juggling two macronutrients, to like the protein and fat versus the protein, the carbs, and the fat,
Mhm.
you've got less to go wrong. You're not worrying about overspilling or feeling dehydrated or having to add in prescription diuretics. We use something like 2 dandelion root capsules before show day.
Wow.
And that's just to get rid of anything I might be holding in my gut if I've drank too much, really. It's not like I'm trying to dry out or dehydrate. And just to show day, we just take sips. So I'm a bit thirsty now, I take a sip of water. That's
Mhm.
good. I'm fine. If I feel a bit flaky, a bit more water, a bit of salt, that's it. So there's nothing magical really.
Your prep sounds very natural, sustainable, and like not huge pushes and huge changes and like mood changes, and then you have to take like prescription or things that are going to wreck your body. But like if you're just doing the carnivore diet the whole way and just making adjustments in the tune macronutrients, having some dandelion at the end, that sounds pretty reasonable, which is interesting in the world of bodybuilding, which is a quite unreasonable sport.
Yeah, I mean, dealing with two macros is a lot easier than dealing with three. My coach has the easiest job ever because he just looks at me and say, "Oh, you need to do a bit on the bike, an extra 5 minutes." I don't do hours and hours of cardio. I'm probably doing something like at the moment the most I've ever done in my recent preps, which is works out about 20 minutes 3 times per week of just slow, steady on the bike.
Yeah.
And it's not to burn up energy. It's more just to keep the body going, revs the metabolism up, helps your mitochondria, things like that. Just a bit of a mood boost. But with cardio, it can easily take a turn. So you can do 3 hours of cardio one day. But I'd never recover from that. I'd look worse. My body get inflamed, my knees be puffy, and that would be it. But this prep and the last preps, I've probably only made like I'd say maybe two macronutrient changes within like a 10, 12 week span. Say someone started on a mixed macronutrient diet with 200 carbs. By the time they finish, they might be on 30, 50, you know. And with
Yeah.
me, it's like we started at, I think, 220 and I'm at 200 now. If you make a bigger fat loss cut at the start, which is what we did, we can kind of ride out that wave a bit. Then if we need to pull back or move things, different levers, we can. But generally speaking, it's quite a breeze compared to what I used to do. Yes, the tiredness is there. Yes, the pain is there when you're sat on a bike and your bum hurts, you got no fat on it. If you're leaning on something, your elbows hurt, things like that. But largely speaking, it's so much easier. I would recommend it to anyone that's bodybuilding out there.
Interesting. That's fascinating. Is there anything else that you want to share before, you talk about the projects you've got going on in your website, but before that, is there any last messages that you want to share?
Honestly, it sounds like some kind of advert or promotion, like as if buy my stuff. Yeah, I would like people to buy my stuff because it's good. But the thing is, I do have a lot of free content online. I mean, I've got something like 750 YouTube videos.
Wow.
And I'm talking like maybe 10, 5 to 10 different playlists. So there's like a fat loss playlist. There's, an exercise playlist. You can actually see what I'm doing in the gym. You can see what I'm doing for my diet, things like that. So I log things as best as I can. I've got lots of interviews, things like that. So the information is out there and it's free. You don't have to pay me for it or anything. I have a free ebook on my website, which is pretty good. But anything additional is like it becomes so niche for someone because people say, I've got stubborn fat. What do I do? I can't answer that question, not because I'm trying to be awkward, but just because I don't know your situation.
Mhm.
I see a name on the screen. It might be Reality Babe USA 6. Hi, I'm 40. I can't lose fat. What should I do? I don't know. You're probably eating too much food, but that could also be a very nonchalant response because maybe you're eating next to nothing. Maybe your activity level's so low that your body's idle. Maybe you've got some form of insulin resistance, something like that. So it takes a lot to pin down what people need to do, but generally speaking, if someone watched majority of my videos or just one of the playlists, they'd be able to get the answer they wanted, I think.
If someone wants to work with you, then what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Honestly, I'd go first for like a short consultation, like half an hour.
Hmm.
It's always good to put like a face to a name to a voice.
Yeah.
Because it's more personal. You kind of take the instruction or the direction a bit better. You can relate to someone, and there's always more information when you're actually speaking with someone versus filling out a form online. So, if I'm in a video meeting with someone and they're saying, "I have life's low stress, this, that, and the other," then the kids come in the room throwing stuff at the mum's screaming at them down the end of the phone. You know they've not got a low stress life. And some people are much more anxious than what they come across as, like how they sort of say. So you won't pick that up unless you're actually speaking to someone. Then you can sort of make that adjustment to their coaching plan and say, well, I need to direct my sort of conversation in this sort of way, or use this sort of terminology, this sort of language, be more emotive, or be less emotive sometimes. With my coach, he just says, yeah, you're looking good. That's about it. I'm fine with that. I don't need the praise and whatever. I just need we're getting better or we're not getting better. That's it. But some people just need hand holding, which is fine. So just different strokes, different folks. But yeah, I generally recommend a half hour consultation first. Then I've got coaching plans and things, various amounts. So 1, 3, and 6 month plans. They're all actually very affordable in my opinion.
Mhm.
If you go to anyone else, you'll probably be charging what one person would charge for a consult for a month of coaching with me, which will include things like um, the diet plan itself, the custom training plan itself, weekly check-ins, regular. I'm timely. I don't sit there and wait a week to reply to someone. People want
Mhm.
to know the answer then. They're paying you for their time. The
Right.
same with my coach. If he didn't respond for a week, I'd be pretty annoyed. So that's kind of my experience of it, and I give what I get given back. So if someone comes to me each week and they've got 20 questions and they're stuck and their head's spinning, well, yeah, I'm gonna spend a good hour or two actually writing out a response to them to sort of help them out, or a voice note if it needs a bit more clarification. I do training performance analysis as well, so I'd consider one of my strengths as a trainer or a coach mostly. That's just the directive in terms of training. Because when you have, complex regional pain, things like that, you have to find ways around it. If someone says to me, I've got a sore toe, well, let's not make that toe worse. How do we work around that? So maybe
Mhm.
we adjust the foot pedal settings or something like that. So it always has to be a tailored approach, and you're just not going to get an answer for a comment section on YouTube, which is
Yeah.
frustrating. But it's just the way the world works, and if you want, above par results, you have to put above par effort in. So that's my experience. But yeah, I mean, that's where I check me out. So that'll be through compositionconsultant.com.
Okay.
Like I said, I've got ebooks as well. I made an ebook with a friend that's got a master's in kinesiology, and basically it's all around training, diet as well. We go into lots of biochemical mechanisms around the carnivore diet, how it applies. Um, Very particular stuff, but some people like the information because it
Mhm.
gives them a justification, that almost like that authority to say, yeah, I know what I'm doing. This is in a book. This guy's doing it. This guy's doing it. Oh, and here's all his testimonials that back up what he's saying. So I think having credibility is important. So I think you do on your site as well. You have to have testimonials and reviews from people just so you know it's legitimate. Otherwise, I know lots of coaches in the carnival space online. They're charging $350 per month for not responding to clients for about a week, and they're claiming natural when they're not. And it's like, how would you expect someone to be honest with you if they won't be honest with their audience?
Mhm.
So I'm very transparent about what I do and don't do. There's no secrets or anything, but it's largely hard work with the right plan. And that's what I try to execute.
I love that, and I love the transparency. I will include the website compositionconsultant.com in the episode description, and I'll also include your Instagram handle, which is Carnivore Muscle, right?
That's it. Yeah. I was going to change my website name, but I don't really want to lose my original website name just because it is quite unique and there's a bit of alliteration. So
Yeah.
sounds good.
I just appreciate the time and your experience and all the wisdom that you've shared today. Thank you, Jonathan.
My pleasure, Christina. Thanks again for having me on, and hopefully this helps some people out. I really hope it does because there's a lot more content related to autism on my channel and training and all that side of things. Recommend people actually, if they're watching this and they see me post this or share this after, please follow this lady on the screen as well. Don't just follow me, and you'll probably get some good advice if you're starting up on carnivore as well.
Thank you.